Welcome, everybody, back to another episode of Completed It. I'm your host, Andy Burrows. Welcome back to another episode. When I started this little venture, I said I wanted to speak to people from TV land and movies far and wide. And one person I automatically wanted to speak to is joining me today, Tim Russ. Best known for his role as Tuvok, I'm guessing, and as much as many other things from Star Trek. Tim, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing fine. I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on. Appreciate it.
No problem, brother. Tim, if I had told you that we were sitting here on the 13th of January 2025 and Star Trek Voyager was still playing such a pivotal role in your life, has it even amazed you that the role that this character and this franchise is taken on in your life?
Well, in a way, yes, in a way, no, because I know that the original series has been playing since the 1960s, and in fact, when I was in college, we only had three, television stations back then, in the dinosaur age, and that show was playing continuously in syndication for years, and that is in fact why that whole franchise was rebooted because they realized that there was a huge fan base from watching the original series in syndication in reruns, and they decided to reboot the series because that brand was already well known, and consequently it was they had enough of an audience to sustain multiple new series, and they're still doing it now. So I'm not surprised, and I'm only because number one, they showed that show so often and so long in syndication, and number two, because the fan base, although it's not huge, is loyal.
Mm.
They're very loyal and very enthusiastic about that subject. I would say they're as enthusiastic about it as fans of football, as it were.
Mm.
So so they know that they have at least that section of a captive audience, an audience that's going to tune in and watch those shows, and that's worth rolling the dice financially on them producing these the reboots of these series.
For you as an actor, Tim, when you were approached about this role, is there any trepidation knowing that the franchise you're going into, knowing like the weight of expectation that is on this great franchise called Star Trek? For you as an actor personally, what did you think about when you first of all got offered the role, and then when the role come about? Does that weigh on you as an actor, knowing that you're going into such a well-known franchise?
Not at all, because at the time the priority was to book a role on a series that was going to stay on the air for more than one season. Because I had had a couple of on-air series regular roles before that, they just didn't last. And from a career and financial standpoint, you need that show to last for a while. So that is superior priority. That's the top priority. That's the most important thing is to book the role that's going to keep you working steadily for X number of years, and that one was almost guaranteed to do so. So I wasn't the least bit concerned about what was down the road because at the end of the day, people's memories are, not that long to begin with. So if I get booked on this thing and they recognize me from working on the show, et cetera, yeah, it'll take a little bit after the show is over for me for them to forget that I was on it and to move on. And then you reinvent yourself and start working again after that, which it happened about 3 years or 4 years or so after I got off. The thing started to roll again and get going. So it was just a matter of time. I wasn't concerned about being typecast. I wasn't concerned about being, part of the franchise forever because, quite frankly, it's been, financially beneficial to me to have been part of this franchise. I can't lie about that. That's
Mm.
fact. So all of that is good.
Gotta pay the bills, Tim. Gotta pay the bills.
How to pay the bills?
Gotta
Yes,
pay
yes.
the bills, my friend. When it started rolling and when you got involved with Star Trek Voyager, did it even surprise you of how well this was going? Because it's start for me, Voyager is such an underrated show. Such an
Yeah.
underrated show within the Star Trek universe. You've got Next Generation, you've got Deep Space Nine in the quote unquote new era of Star Trek. Where do you think Voyager sat with everything?
I feel that just from the feedback I get from the fans, they really did like Voyager because Voyager sort of mimicked in concept the same story concept and setting as the original series because we were, lost in a part of the galaxy that was uncharted. So every one of our episodes could be anything we wanted. So we have got a wide open swath of possibilities for storylines because we're in uncharted space. And
Mm.
sure enough, they used that to their advantage when they were telling stories. I mean, they were, we it was from one alien race to another, or one phenomenon to another, to whatever. We could do whatever we wanted to. So that opens up all of the story possibilities. And Star Trek is about stories, and that's why this series prevails,
Mm.
and has gone on for so long. The fans are hooked into the stories and the character challenges. And when you have a wide open, field of possibilities because of where the ship is located, just like the original series, each episode can be its own standalone episode. We don't need to follow what happened the week before or the 2 weeks before or whatever. We don't have the same characters all the time showing up. We're not stuck in one part of space. We're not, it's everything is new. So my feedback when I'm at the conventions is, yeah, they really liked Voyager. They preferred Voyager, and I think also we had the first female captain. So people are going to check in to see what that's all about, and I think that's a curiosity. And as far as where the shows sat in the ratings, they all sat in the same spot
Hmm.
in the ratings numbers. They were all the shows were basically in the same area. So from a commercial studio and network standpoint, they were basically the same. I get a lot of feedback from people who watch Voyager. They really liked it, and I think it's because of that original series concept that we were running.
Yeah, no, definitely. I agree. How much input did you have into where your character went as the seasons went on? I've always been I've been very lucky. I've spoke to a lot of actors and actresses. Some like the input, some don't. They just, hey, look, I'm here to do a job. I do what I'm told. This is what I'm doing. How are you as an actor? Do you maybe seeing your character going one direction and you might be, hang on a minute, maybe we could suggest this? Was there any points in Voyager or anything that you really liked getting your teeth stuck into? But how much input did you have on the character of Tuvok?
Well, you could always go to the writers or the exec producers and ask them, can we try, this concept as a storyline for an episode for my character? I mean, we could do that. And we got a couple of the other actors, Bob Picardo mentioning one, he was over there quite often asking for all these different things for his character, and they've delivered on a number of them. So that's very cool. I only gave them just a sort of a general, suggestion. I just said, look, if you can, give me stories wherein my character's logic, which is the main aspect of the character, is challenged.
Hmm.
A situation where the logic that I use may not work. I may have to defer to something more quote unquote human. I may have to defer to something that's not logical in order to get myself out of that situation or to solve a problem. And that's what I asked him. And that was basically it. Put him in a situation that's really difficult for him to handle, you
Mm.
know, because he comes off otherwise being so together and having, knowing what's going on and intelligent and, and logical. And so, yeah, he should be able to solve just about any problem just by thinking through it. And I just wanted him to, give me something that, a situation where it's not so cut and dry, not so black and white, not so easy to get myself out of that situation. And that's all I gave them. And they sort of delivered on that as well.
Mm. With the way that the franchise went with, say, Star Trek: The Next Generation and a few others, was there any talk of ever taking Voyager to the big screen, movie-wise? I mean, you probably get asked it a lot of the time. I mean, I've listened to interviews with people from Next Generation and from other different TV shows that potentially could have gone to the big screen. Was there any ever talk of Voyager to being turned into a movie? I know they talked about DS9 all the time. I know you've recently done the great things like Picard, which was taken from the Next Generation.
Yeah.
Was there any ever talk of a Voyager hitting the big screen?
No talk of Voyager ever becoming a film. I mean, there's no rumors about it, and I would be the last to know in that scenario. So they're not going to call me and let me know. It's there hasn't been any talk about any of that, and or rebooting the series or spinning off the series. So that one sort of came and went, and whatever it is they end up doing, down the line, they may include some of us in those storylines, or they may not. So but never any talk of that at all. No.
When you get the call to come back and appear in like a Picard or something within the Star Trek universe, is there ever any trepidation? Is there any like, oh, you speak to actors and they're like, it should be left where it is. I don't know if I want, but you've come back and what you've done recently. We've all seen you, in Picard. It's been everyone was stunned to see you, and it was such a great surprise to the fans. You must hear it all the time. When you were approached to do it, to do like the new projects, was that something that you jumped at?
Well, it was an easy gig. I'm just resurrecting the character that I played for 7 years. It's on another Trek show. It's work for that week or the couple of weeks that I worked on it. Yeah, it was not a problem at all. It was fine for me. I kind of like the concept of the cameos. I kind of like the concept of a character coming back and you see them, and because the I know that the fans are going to get a huge kick out of that, and it also again gives me my participation in the franchise even more, a little
Mm.
more life, beyond Voyager. Um, that's kind of cool. So, and it can be to my advantage in that respect. So I have no issues at all about rebooting that character. If they asked me to do it tomorrow, I'd probably show up and do it tomorrow. It's also work. That's what it
Yeah,
is. It's
pay
the
the bills,
thing.
Tim.
It's
Go pay the bills. That's what we keep saying.
the
Um,
job, you know.
Was there any, as I was very fortunate last year, I sat down and interviewed Terry Crews for my football podcast. He used to be in the NFL. I talked to him about like, did he ever feel that with this role, it kind of hinders what he'd done in the future? Terry's known from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, such a great character in that. With yourself as an actor now, I've been very fortunate. I've spoke to some actors, especially over here in some UK sitcoms. They're like, "Hey, look, people want to know me as that character for ever so be it." How do you feel as an actor moving forward now with things you've done, things you might be going to do in the future? Is it something that people always associate you with? Is that a good thing? Or is it a bad thing to be like stereocasted, stereotyped as just that main character? Because you've been in some great, been in some really good movies, done some good TV shows. How do you feel though as Tim Russ, the actor?
Yeah, well, it's a double-edged sword. It's a blessing and a curse. I mean, there is the aspect of being known iconically in one project so much that it sort of overshadows anything else that you might end up doing. Um, and yeah, that does happen, and it's just something I have to kind of live with. Whether it's not being able to get another gig for a while after the show because of being on that show for so long, or if it's because it's such a legacy role that is still going on today, in terms of reruns and fans and things signing on, that there's nothing much I can do about that,
Mm,
unfortunately. And yeah, it's a drag because creatively, yes, I want to move on. I want to do other things. I have done other things. I'm planning to do other things down the line. So I would love to at least be known for the other projects, whether I'm in front of or behind camera, and get some recognition for those as well. Sure, absolutely, I'd love to have that. Um, but I'm probably going to be saddled with the recognition factor from the show because that's just the way it's just the way it is, and again, because that show is still showing, it's still playing. I mean, people are watching some of them for the first time, so it's not going anywhere,
yeah.
and there's a lot of it. So
There's a hell of a lot of it.
yeah,
Um,
so it's I have to deal with that, and it's not gonna, I'm not gonna have any sleepless nights because of it. It's just a thing that it's just something that came along with the territory, with the package,
mm.
and I deal with it as best I can.
How do you feel when, quote unquote, the new generation of fans come up to you? You know what I mean? There's probably been people of a certain age that grew up with you. Now you say it's never ending Star Trek. It'll be passed on from generations to generations. There are certain iconic shows and franchises throughout the world that get to do that. How does it feel to you when you might have a 17-year-old guy come up to you nowadays and go, hey Tim, I'm watching you for the very first time in Star Trek Voyager. Is that kind of like mind blowing? And you're like, oh my God, this is never ending. How does that feel for you as an actor?
Yeah, well, it's again, it goes along with what I said earlier. The fact that because it's on in syndication and it's playing on streamers and anybody can watch it forever. Unlike the old days when the series was off, you might not see it again. And that was it. But now because it's on, in a number of different places, people can watch that endlessly, and the adults can introduce their children to the show, and that's what's happened.
Mm,
So a lot of times it's because the parents are watching it, and then the kids start watching it, and all of a sudden there's new fans. So, and the show it has a life of its own because it's a science fiction show, so it takes place way in the future. So there's a tendency for it, basically for it to hold up over time. It doesn't get dated as quickly as a contemporary show might get dated. So I think it's you know it's not surprising because of the fact that it's out there everywhere. It's just something that I take note of when they come up to me and tell me that they just started watching the show, and I tell them, I said, well, there's a heck of a lot of episodes, and there's some really really good stories, so you're gonna really enjoy checking out each one of these the episodes in each one of these seasons of the show. And again, that's what I expect, because it's out there, and the fans that watch it are very very loyal and very enthusiastic.
mm.
That's absolute fact.
Yeah. Just moving on a little bit from Star Trek, Tim. What do you like the most about the TV industry and the world of TV, and what do you dislike the most? Is there something that you would like to improve yourself? Because the way we're going now with streaming, I'm with you. I grew up with three TV channels. I say this to my daughter now. She looks at me like I've got two heads.
Yeah, right.
I had three TV channels here in the UK. I had BBC One, BBC Two, and ITV. That's all I had. I couldn't hit a button on my phone and record a TV show. I didn't have streaming. What do you like most about where TV is going now? And is there anything that you don't like or that you miss from the past that you maybe tweak and you would improve?
Well, I think that the landscape that we're in right now for television is it's like the wild wild west right now because of the streamers. Now people are kind of they're trying to figure out what the footing is going to be, where they're going to go, how they're going to develop, and how they're going to evolve. And the people who are watching it, are thinking about, man, do I, want to sign up for 5 or 6 different streaming services, and have 5 or 6 different subscriptions. And I think that they may end up consolidating all that stuff into maybe one package of some type, and or pay as you go for the actual projects you want to watch or the episodes or whatever. It's There's a remarkable amount of content that's available to see. You can't keep up with it,
Mm.
as a viewer. You can't keep up with it. There's so many projects, so many series. Um, I'm a movie buff, so I like movies. I prefer movies
Oh,
more than
you're
I
gonna
like.
love this channel then. Make sure you subscribe.
I like I like films more so than series projects, just on a personal level. Um, if I'm working on a project from behind camera or whatever, putting it together, I tend to swing towards feature films rather than series. I don't really watch myself that many series. I prefer to watch one-off the films. If it's a limited series like 4 episodes or 5 or something like that, and it's got a pretty sharp arc to it, and I can get in and get out, without a lot of extra stuff that just fillers and things like that. then I might check it out. I have here and there, but ultimately the landscape has changed so much with the availability of being able to watch literally at anything. I
Mm.
mean, I can go back and watch, material that I grew up with, that was not available before. Whether it's, music stuff that's oriented videos, footage from concerts, things like old programs, everything is available at the touch of a button, which is, that's crazy, for this period in time to be able to have access to all of that literally at your fingertips.
Mm.
Um, it's remarkable, but then the glut of content becomes bigger and bigger and bigger, and sometimes the quality of that content suffers as a result of there being so much. Um, that's the only thing in terms of just being a viewer and watching it is interesting. So I'm looking forward to seeing how the streamers are all going to play out. Some of them may fall by the wayside, some of them may consolidate and create a package that you can so they can all benefit from it. So it'll be interesting to see how that works. It's such a different world now
Oh.
than it used to be, um, and I am curious to see how that plays out.
Tim, I'm with you. I'm a big movie guy. Hence why I started this channel. I wanted to speak to people from TV and movies. Where do you sit? Me and my friends talk about this all the time. Movie and reboots. Is
Uh,
it a me and my mates talk about this all the time. Sometimes the reboots are done and they're done well. Sometimes to me it's the industry being lazy.
yes.
It's a quick buck. Let's reboot this. Let's put this on the screen. How are
Yeah.
you sitting with reboots? Because Star Trek's been done. There's been Star Trek Discovery, etc. I'm not purely talking about the Star Trek genre that you were involved with. Everything that seems to be coming on the cinema now, it's a reboot of a movie from when I was a kid. How does that sit with you?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the reboots as far as films go, specifically for as far as films. I don't dig that at all. Now, if you want to take, a franchise like Star Wars, Star Trek, whatever you want to do, and you want to create a new series based in that world, um, you could probably get away with doing that, and have something of quality, as long as the writing is good, and the acting is good, the writing is good, the production is good. For series projects, if you want to reboot, oh, I don't know, say, the Twilight Zone, they've rebooted it a couple of times.
Hmm.
They rebooted Outer Limits and brought it back. In those series situations, they're anthologies. So each story is a standalone story. They're not a series arc. So you can get away with doing it something like that with those kinds of shows, as long as your stories are strong and you would hold, sort of stay within the lanes of what that concept was about to begin with. In that sense, you can get away with it, and I don't mind that as long as the stories are good.
Hmm.
If you're going to take something like Star Wars, which you can see right now, Star Wars, they've got three series based on, just elements of Star Wars. And, you'd have to really do them right in order for them to me, for them to work. I'm not crazy about taking a movie and rebooting the movie. That I don't like. I don't like the sequels, and I don't like rebooting. I don't need to see a sequel. Unlike, say, for example, Raiders of the Lost Ark,
Hmm.
that's a serial, not necessarily a sequel. It's a serial. So each story, because you have the same hero,
Hmm.
but you have an entirely different story. So that's all you're carrying is the hero character to the next piece. Now you can get away with that if it's a series, I mean a serial rather than taking the same story and telling it over again. That drives me absolutely insane.
Yeah, me too.
It's like let's just we got the first one, which was the best one. Let's not go and do a second or third or fourth. And all you're doing is taking three elements out of the first one and amplifying
Yeah,
them 10 times. No, thank you very much.
yeah.
Nothing to do with that. So all the sequels and all that kind of stuff, no way. If you want to reboot a concept, you know, go ahead, but you've got to really do something different with it and something unique with it to make it work. And yes, it is the studios. It's using the brand. It's called branding. They use the brand that's already out there. So it's not even so much a question of being lazy. It's a question of being how much money can we make this quarter, and that's what it is. Because all the studios are owned by major corporations. They're
Yeah.
all big corporate mergers. So all they're looking at is what that quarterly bottom line is. They don't care about anything else. Those people aren't writers and producers. They're MBAs. They're
Mm.
business degree people. They're just sitting up there trying to figure out how to turn a profit, for the shareholders in this quarter. So they'll throw anything at the screen, and sometimes spend a whole hell of a lot of money doing it, on projects that just flop or they fail because they don't have anybody writing them worth a shit. So, rather and because they have a brand that's already been done, and so they'll bring back everything. I mean, the toys, video games. I
Hmm.
mean, there's all the movies about toys and video games and this and that because people already know the name,
Yeah, it's
and that's
easy.
nothing but corporate greed, corporate profit, driving the issue of the creation of content. Yeah, never used to happen when we were growing up. You saw something and it was done.
Mm.
I think
Yeah.
to some degree, we did have King Kong, we did have Creature from the Black Lagoon. They did do those, but those were more or less again serials because you have your same, principal character, but you have a different story. And so I think it was a little bit different in that respect. Again, the
Yeah.
same thing as Twilight Zone. Those are anthologies. Raiders of the Lost Ark is an anthology. I mean, a serial rather. So because you have one main character that is introduced into a whole new story. If you do a sequel like what was it? The one where that where they're chasing Tom Hanks did it with and I got to remember all the names of the titles of the movies I'm trying to think of. They had the same character, but that whole scenario was another setup and
Hmm.
execution of another storyline.
Yeah.
The same elements were there, the same concept, more or less, but it's more of a serial because you have the lead characters doing something very different where you can't do something entirely different in the story.
Mm.
So whether it's Raiders or whether it's um, you know chasing the conspiracy theory stories,
Hmm.
one is a different conspiracy.
Yeah.
That's a huge umbrella that you can go into and play around with. But your lead character is the same. So that's different, I think, than telling a story like Alien, for example. You make a sequel about Alien, that doesn't make any sense. It's the story's over after the first one. The next one is just putting a lot
Yeah.
more aliens in it,
Yeah. It's just
and
like, hang on a minute. I thought you killed this thing.
telling the same story
Yeah.
over and over again. That's what drives me crazy. I don't want to see the
Yeah.
same story. I don't want to see the same story over and over again. And this time there's 50 more of this or 50 more of that or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's the only change you've made. And when even the dialogue starts to sound the same, no, no.
Yeah.
That I
It's
don't
all the same. It's just bigger. It's a bigger effects, but it's pretty much the same
bigger,
story.
faster, funnier.
Yeah.
Yeah, bigger,
I
faster,
recently,
funnier.
I just finished watching Shooter not long ago, the series, and it literally just followed the film, but for 8 episodes. And I was like, and everything that they were doing in the series was the movie, but they broke it down into 8 parts. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, come on, guys. This is just lazy.
It's the same story. I
Yeah.
mean, that's your story. And
Mm.
if you're going to do that concept, you'd have to take it from an entirely different perspective.
Mm.
Some other character's perspective, and maybe some other character's backstory, or some other character's future story, so that you have a completely different story. What sense does it to tell a series and basically just break the movie down into
Yeah.
parts?
That's all they done.
That's ridiculous. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, no, I
No,
don't.
that's all they done. That's all they done.
No,
Tim,
I don't.
just
Yeah,
finishing up with you, my friend. I'm so grateful that you've taken the time to come on my show. What
yeah.
does the future look like, Tim? What are you up to these days? What's coming up in the future for you, brother?
Well, I've got a feature film that I'm slated to direct later on this year, as soon as they've secured the cast and the slate. I think we're number two or three in the slate in the
Hmm.
order. So I think hopefully by late spring, early summer, maybe midsummer that I'll be working on that project, probably shooting here in LA. It's a very cool project, sort of a crime story and a creature flick all rolled into one. And I look forward to doing it. It's one of my own projects. So that's the big stuff that's on the
Hmm.
horizon. The acting work just comes and goes when it goes.
Yeah.
But I'm working with several different producers on projects. One is also a biopic from World War One, working on
Oh,
that as well. And that is something that would shoot overseas, and that's a big, heavy lift. It's a large budget, or so, it's a decent budget, but it's a lot of work because it's a period piece, and that would roll overseas. That's just in development right now. We're just trying to get some financial backing for it, et cetera, some interest in it. So those two things right now are the biggest pieces that I'm working with, and we'll see what happens. I'm just directing. I'm not producing. I don't like to wear the producer hat. Yeah.
right, Tim. It's been great to have you on our episode and just briefly touch on your career. Tim, if you had just been the last one, if you had to sum up your career in one word, what would that word be?
Lucky. That would be the word. I can only say lucky, fortunate, um, that I have gotten as far as I have
Mm.
in my career. It's not the top of the pyramid, but it's somewhere in the middle. And I've been able to live uh, pretty comfortably by now. That didn't start out that way, but by now I've achieved enough that I can live comfortably and still be working in the business, in different areas of the business. I've been fortunate to have opportunities in other areas, voiceover and directing and all kinds of stuff like that. So I can only say lucky because a lot of my contemporaries have not had that break yet, and they're still hustling, still humping. So yeah, that's the main thing, that I'm very, very fortunate, very lucky.
Well, Tim, thanks so much for coming on our show, bro. I really do appreciate it. Wish you so much luck with all the projects that you've got coming up, and hopefully I'll get to sit down with you again one day, and we can talk about them projects that are coming up.
You got it, man. And I post everything on my Facebook page. Everybody can look me up. It's Tim Russ. Just look up there, you'll see me. And I
No.
post projects that are going. Star City Murders is a film that I was in, just recently released. Star City Murders, and that is, I think I posted it on my Facebook page, but it's out there on Amazon and some other streamers right now. So I will post the stuff that comes up when they allow me to do so. Uh,
Oh, I don't know what's going on Twitter these days or X, whatever it's
oh,
called. Elon
yeah,
Musk has got his yeah.
yeah,
Don't get me
yeah.
started on that, Tim. That's a whole nother hours worth
Another hour,
of
easy. Yeah,
podcasting, my man. But
yeah.
Tim, thanks so much, bro, and I'll catch up with you soon.
Thank you very much. Take
No,
care.
bros. Make sure you check us out on Twitter. We are at Completed It Pod. You can find us right there. But till next week, everybody, thanks for tuning in.
Take care.